Okay, so now it's time to actually connect to our database. So we're going to create a connection that's going to be reusable on multiple pages. So we're going to be splitting up the connect functionality so we can include it on many of our pages that we create. And you'll see that I've got two files open here. Let's just take a look at the directory structure we're working with. I've created a folder just called DB, and that's storing this connect file that you can see up here. And I have an index file which I'm going to assume is one of the pages on my website. Now we're only going to be working with index.php and connect.php. We're going to be creating everything inside of this index.php file just as we go along. So the first thing we really want to do is create PHP tags on both of our pages, since we are working with PHP functionality, and connect is the file that we're going to focus on for this part of the tutorial. So we want to create a connection to our database so we can use it on other pages. So really what we want to do is we want to require in this file that we've created. So we want to require db/connect.php. And what that's going to do is it will require this file in so we can make use of all the variables or anything that we create on this page. So now what we want to do is create a variable with a new connection to our database. So if you've not worked with object-oriented programming before, this might look a little strange, but essentially we have a MySQLi object. And what this does is it contains all of the functionality that we need. This is the benefit of MySQLi over the old MySQL extension, is that we have object-oriented functionality within this object or class that we can instantiate. Now, instantiate just means that you create a new an object from that class. So a little bit of object-oriented theory there, but basically it looks like this. It's not too complicated. We create a variable called db, and we assign that or assign the value of a new MySQLi object. So it works a little like a function. This will be the constructor function that we can pass through different parameters to. And in this case, we're going to be connecting to localhost or 127.0.0.1, and we want to supply a username. We want to supply a password. In my case, there's no password on the root account. I'm just working on my local machine. And optionally, the database that you want to connect to. Now, I say this is optional because you can specify this in your queries, but it's probably better just literally to pop it there when you're connecting. So what we now want to do is check whether our database has successfully connected or not. Now we can leave things as they are. Let's just open the browser and check what this looks like. So nothing's happened because we know that there's been a successful connection. We know that these credentials are correct and we know that this database exists. But what if this database didn't exist? So I'm just going to pop a Z on the end of there. If I refresh now, you see that we get this PHP warning. Now, it's not a fatal error, so the rest of the page is going to continue to execute, but if we can't connect to our database, then the rest of our functionality is pointless. So what we want to be able to do is actually catch this error and then output it. So typically on an environment that you're working in, you won't have error reporting on because it's a potential security risk. So if we just take a look at that error again, you can see here that it's telling us sort of vital things about our server setup. In this case, it's just my local machine, but this could be a Linux server or something like that. So we're giving away a database name, we're giving away path information. So this isn't great. This isn't what we want to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to set error reporting here, and this can be done via your php.ini file, or you can explicitly define it at the top of your page. And remember, this has to be included on every single page as well, so perhaps an initialization file or something like that. But for now, let's just pop it on this index.php page, and let's just take a look at what happens when we connect to a wrong database with error reporting turned off. Now, nothing is output. This can be confusing in terms of development. So for development, you might want to have error reporting turned on so you can keep an eye on the errors. However, in a production environment, you're going to want error reporting set off. Now, how are we going to catch this error if for some reason we can't connect to our database? Now, it's unlikely that we're going to have supplied an incorrect database name. It's still possible, but it's unlikely that if we don't touch this code for a while, that it's ever going to change and mess up. So we need some way to determine whether the connection was successful. Not necessarily was the database name successfully supplied, but we want to catch this error. So what we want to do is create a small if statement here, and we can do this in other ways. We'll look at ways we might be able to do that in a moment. But we can do things like if db connect error number. Now, basically, what this is going to do is it's going to supply us with an error number if the connection has failed. So let's just go ahead and instead of putting this in an if statement, let's go ahead and echo this out. So what we're now doing is ignore this if statement for a moment. We're echoing out this property here, this connect error number property. So what that will do is that will give us back an error number. If it's 0, it means we've successfully connected. In this case, we have. If I change that back to Z, you'll see that we get a specific error number relating to the problem. Now that's a little more friendly than just outputting that horrible error, because we don't want anyone to see that. But what if we want to say to a user, sorry, our site's offline due to a database error, or even just say, sorry, we're having some problems at the moment? Well, in this case, we can put this into an if statement. If this is 0, that means we have connected. If it's not 0, that means we do have an error. If this is positive, we do have an error. So, if it's 0, we're fine. So what we can do is we can kill the page and just say, sorry, we are having some problems. So that will just kill the rest of the script, output on the page this, and nothing else will be run, so we'll prevent any further errors from being triggered. So that's how we connect to our database and how we catch errors. If you needed to, perhaps for debugging purposes, specifically output an error, you could do db connect error, which will give you the specific error in a more friendly way. So in this case, we'll see, let's just get rid of this for a moment. In this case, what we'll see is this. So it says unknown database apps. So you could, of course, use this for debugging purposes if you want to. But for now, let's just go ahead and kill the page if this isn't successful. And otherwise, we can assume that this echo statement will run because our database has successfully connected. And that's it. We've connected to a database, we've checked for any errors and killed the page accordingly. And from here, we can go on to actually start querying our database and returning results.